Hello friends, and welcome to the channel. If you're looking to transition to a whole food, plant-based way of eating, I found that the number one best thing you can do to improve your odds of actually sticking to it is to build your meals around starches. And so let me kind of define my terms when I talk about these things. When I say whole food plant-based, the plant-based part is really vegan. So no animal products of any kind, no meats, no eggs, no dairy, no butter, no cheese, no bacon grease. You get it, basically no food that has come from an animal. And when I say whole food, I basically mean not processed. And so this would be like no potato chips, no Oreo cookies, which believe it or not are vegan, but they're far from like raw ingredients. That sort of thing. Now, this video is less to do with like why you'd want to do that. There's like a ton of good reasons. And for me, I went down this path originally to become a better runner. And the results that came from that were fantastic. There's less to do about that though. It's really more if you've decided that you want to give this a try, this is more about like how best to actually go through with that decision and actually stick with it. And what I found is that my ability to stick with this kind of eating pattern has everything to do with like not being hungry. That is like direct proportional relationship, cause and effect. If I'm hungry, I just know that, every day that goes by where I'm hungrier and hungrier and hungrier, the siren song or the siren call of like the nearest Chick-fil-A just gets louder and louder and louder. And all of a sudden, I find myself, in the drive-through line, making up for lost time, indulging in like a spicy chicken sandwich deluxe. And, when I'm not hungry, I just don't feel that temptation anywhere, actually like at all. And that's really where starches come in. Starches are just like kryptonite to hunger. Now, I've been saying starch a lot. Let me kind of define what I mean by that. Starches are basically whole foods that come from like three main categories. One is whole grains. So this would be like steel-cut oats, brown rice, quinoa, farro, teff. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. Millet, all those grains that you find in like the grocery aisle. Then there are the second category, legumes. And so this is any kind of bean, pea, lentil. I mean, there's like an entire universe of legumes to explore. And then the third category are starchy vegetables. So this would basically be potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, that sort of a thing. And I've just found that by choosing to approach my eating patterns by building a plate that's centered around a starch, that just kind of made all the difference in the world. And so, for instance, if a starch, like to give you just a few examples, like in the morning, I'll have steel-cut oats to kick off the day. I usually put a bunch of like fruits and berries into that. I'll cut a banana into it. I'll be a little decadent and I'll throw in some peanut butter and maple syrup. And technically those aren't whole food, but I do them in moderation. And they really kind of make that a very joyful breakfast. For lunch, I'm usually having like the leftovers of the previous night's like starch-based dinner, or I'll have like some kind of potato-oriented dish. Potatoes, by the way, are like the single most satiating thing you could eat. They're kind of amazing. And then for dinner, I'm a big fan of like a rice and bean, rice and lentil. And there are just so many like recipes available there. I mean, there are all these Asian recipes. You can go Indian, there's Mexican food. In fact, I think every civilization has at its root some kind of starch, that anchors its cuisine. And because of that, it's not usually very hard to find recipes that, are starch oriented in their nature. I've just found that being kind of starch forward is great because starches themselves are like cheap. They're just so easy on the pocketbook. They're abundant. You can oftentimes buy them in bulk or in large quantities, and they're just everywhere. They're like in every single grocery store. You can always count on finding these basic ingredients. And if you get a couple of good recipes together, it's just even easier to kind of stick with it. I've been able to go months at a time once I figured out like focus on starches. You know, I just was never hungry and it was never too hard to kind of stick with it. And that has basically kind of evolved into like starch-based meal planning. And that's become, you know, my system for how I best achieve this desired identity of being a plant-predominant person, which is what this channel is really all about, is pursuing my desired identities. So anyway, if you're someone who is, you know, resolved or maybe just interested in going into a plant-based lifestyle, you do yourself a huge favor by, you know, checking out a starch-centered approach. And yeah, it just made a world of difference for me. So that's it for this video. Thanks for joining or for visiting the channel. We'll see you in the next one.